Hi everybody, welcome back to the Advanced Mortgage and Insurance Solutions podcast. I'm your host Joel Sadler, and our special guest today is Travis Hamilton from Plan B Insurance. He's going to speak with us today around why people avoid speaking about insurance and some of the sort of taboos, particularly in New Zealand culture. So over to you, Travis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll first start saying it is kind of a natural response. It's not something that we all want to get out of bed and talk about on a daily basis, right? Especially when we're talking about things about our own health or what we would want to have happen for either our family, or if we were not around, or if we were disabled or couldn't work or had a heart attack, or so that's very normal. It's a very normal reaction to not want to discuss it, but it doesn't make it. It's still very important to discuss, right? And
Yeah.
what I kind of talk about with clients is, a lot of times people say, hey, look, we haven't been asked these questions before, or we haven't spoken to each other about that prior. And I say that that's very normal, and probably nor should you. It'd be an odd thing to talk about regularly, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But it's probably something it is quite good to know, especially for that peace of mind that and to make an informed decision whether it is to have protection or not.
Yeah.
That you've made that informed call on it. So I guess the main part is for us to make sure we ask the right questions to get the right answers about that person, and talking about that taboo part, like there are some people and some cultures that don't want to discuss that, or find it confronting, and whether it's health or money, and you're combining those two. So and in New Zealand specifically, we've been known to have about the numbers change a bit, but often around the third most uninsured country in the OECD, out of developed countries, and
Yeah.
I think that's for a variety of reasons. One is that Kiwis generally, we've got this pretty good she'll be right attitude.
Yeah,
Everything
we do.
will work out, that's what makes us Kiwi, right? We also, there's a perception that we've got ACC. I'm covered because I've got ACC, and I personally, I think that with some of the pros and cons out of it, there's some issue, nothing's perfect, but compared to a lot of the rest of the world, ACC is actually a really good program. It's a no fault, no pre-existing claims component that does cover you, but it's only for accidents, and that's often a misconception as well. That covers people for everything.
Yeah.
You're more likely to be off work from being sick or disabled, or physical or mental health, than you are from an accident at work or something like that. But it is good to know that they are great in that space. So some people believe that, and then obviously some people think the public health system will cover them for everything, and it may do and may not, and that's kind of a personal preference as well. Some people are really happy with the quality of the public health system. Others don't like the idea of being on long waiting lists and access to drugs and medications that's not covered publicly, and so on and so forth. So those are kind of the main things I think that and people put it on the back burner, right? They've got other things to do. It's like some people with a gym membership, they know they need to use it, but once that falls out the back of their mind. So that's probably
Go ahead.
some of them. I was just lastly saying on that is, but often what we find is when we sit down with clients is that eventually, often they feel, hey, I'm really sorry this took a lot longer than it should have. Just life, and then I'm saying that's completely normal, and don't worry about that. But the other part is, they're often relieved that they go, I'm glad we actually got to do it, and I'm glad we've got protection in place, and in the end, so they're happy with the outcome of the discussions and the solutions. But it's just just starting it,
Yeah. 100%. I found that with myself. I think, there's certain things that I put off or put to the back burner. I think for me, having kids come along definitely brought a level of seriousness to life, not in a bad way, but just in a responsibility type of way. And I know, obviously, as we've spoken about buying a house, that's also quite a critical time, a big investment for people's lives. So great time I would suggest for people to reach out to you, because obviously you're linking and working with Advanced Mortgage Solutions quite closely. So they're working with people to help them buy a home. So what a great time to talk about insurances, and because it's a big loan responsibility or mortgage responsibility that people are signing up for.
Yeah, it's probably it's often one of the most pivotal times in people's life, right? They're buying probably the biggest asset they ever will. They'll be in the most debt they probably ever will be in their lives. Often, some of them have young families. Uh, they could be on one income and heavily reliant on that person to be able to financially provide for that family. So it's often a really a good time to actually talk about that because they're at a high exposure to risk, right? Because insurance isn't a solution for everything, by the way. It's a it's just a way to mitigate risk or pass it on to someone else if you don't want to retain that yourself. But what we
Yeah.
find is that most people don't have another solution such as access to enough funds to clear their debt or live on forever. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a thing that you know they need, but it doesn't have to be. It's just a piece of the puzzle, right?
Mm.
Um, of their protection plan. You can mitigate risk other ways, by living a healthier life. You can, there's so many different components, but for big significant scenarios that can impact someone's trajectory towards retirement, and having a retirement and nest egg is about protecting their health, right? And in fact, we think that your biggest asset, if you ask people what their biggest asset is, sometimes people often think it's probably the house or my income.
Yeah.
And it's actually their health, because the health is the one that generates them to have the income to buy the house and so on and so forth. So, when you kind of help people um, see that, then they kind of put more emphasis on it.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. And then emphasis on protecting that as well, which is what the insurance does.
Yeah, and it's
Mm.
it's quite interesting about just going back about why do people find it's hard to talk about? Like I've in the 15 years, I think part of our job is not to get desensitized to these topics. We do a lot in the claim space, obviously. That's a part of
Mm.
our, and so we see the full circle. Whereas a lot of people
Yeah.
don't see that because they might pay a policy and never claim and think,
Yeah.
well, I didn't need that. But that's good, because if you claimed, you'd be, that you
Mm.
wouldn't be in a good position. And the ones that are claiming have had, they're in the worst time of their lives, so they're not in a position to,
Mm.
sing from the rooftops about how great their policy is. So it's kind of
Yeah.
one of those things that always goes towards someone. It may
Mm.
not go to that individual, but it will go to someone
Yeah.
else that needs it. So
Mm.
um, when I got my own house, we went in to
Mm.
get our will done, right? And I'm in
Yeah.
this field, and even just talking to the lawyer about, if something happened to me, what would I want for my kids or my wife, and so. And I thought, when it's put back on yourself, it is quite confronting. So I think we're trying to be always cognizant of that, and trying to do things in a way that they understand the importance of it, but trying to talk about it in a way that's not going to overwhelm or just distress someone, but getting the kind of message
Mm.
across about what would be their wishes, financially.
Yeah.
And that's kind of
Yeah.
um, the aim of it.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Travis. If you're listening to this podcast today and you want to talk to someone about insurance, and also someone that has empathy and rapport, and Travis has a lot of that because it can be a confronting subject, then don't put it off any longer. It's free to catch up with Travis and have a chat about your options, and then he can put something together to you in a proposal, or further meetings to answer any questions. So you can go to www.advancedmortgagesolutions.co.nz. There's web forms there. You can make a phone call via the website and book a meeting with Travis. Brilliant. Thanks for joining us,
Thanks,
Travis,
Joel.
and we'll see
Appreciate
you
it. No
on the
worries.
next episode.
Sounds great. See ya.